Welcome. Scott here. Here is an overview guide for the current Crevasse Beta event. The event is a 7-stage Heretics event which allows you to set your own field codes to earn Crevasse points for the event. To get all rewards, you need to attain at least 300 points. The 7 stages consists of a Cosmos stage, a Chaos stage, 2 LUFENIA stages and 3 LUFENIA Plus stages. Generally, the higher the difficulty the stage offers, the higher is the points modifier. Codes are rules that may affect both characters and enemies in the Crevasse. In each quest, you can select from the list and activate your own set of codes. Codes can restrict which characters you may bring into the battle and may enhance your enemies among other effects. In addition, there are 5 special countdown cards for the LUFENIA stages which allows you to replace the LUFENIA conditions as per your liking. Here is a general summary on the event. You cannot use a friend support for every fight in Crevasse. Upon perfecting the stage, the characters used to complete the fight will be locked and cannot be used for other stages. As there are 7 stages to be clear, you will need a total of 35 characters for the fight. Plan your teams accordingly. In addition, each stage has its clear requirements like the standard no KO, turn limit, and HP damage requirements. Reset the quest will set the points awarded back to 0. Do note that once you exit the stage selection screen, the rules will be reset back to its default. Clearing a stage without setting any rules will give you 0 points. So make sure you check the rules are in place before you commence the fight. Here is the full reward list for the Crevasse Beta event. Points are awarded upon clearing a quest to perfect. The number of points awarded will depend on the codes activated for each quest. These points are added together based on combination of codes activated. Accumulate as many total points as possible across all the Crevasse quest. You can collect the rewards based on the total points reached in the missions page. You will need to get all stages clear to achieve the 300 total points for all the rewards that you see on the screen. Don't worry too much if you are unable to clear all 7 stages, as this event's geared toward players who amassed a big roster to tackle the event. Try to clear as many stages as you can with your roster. Here is the stage listing of the 7 stages with some basic boss data and the default LUFENIA orb conditions. Generally, the fights are reskin version of previous events. I won't talk too much regards the Cosmos and Chaos difficulty level of the event, as they are easy to clear if you are playing for a long time. Here is a quick overview on the LUFENIA stages. For Crevasse Beta Part 3, the fight is the same fight that you encountered in Root Lost Chapter LUFENIA. You will be fighting 3 Masked Monk which has 7.5 million HP each. They are immune to lock. The default LUFENIA orb is a strict 500,000 total damage in a 1 turn. The Masked Monk will changes its mask stance and counter with annoying debuffs that prevent brave gains. Highly recommended you bring a debuff evasion or cleanser for the fight. For Crevasse Beta Part 4, the fight is redesigned version of the Dimension End Transcendus Tier 2 Reckoning stage. You will fight 2 Fallen Parrot which has 10 million HP each. They are immune to launches. The default orb condition is to maintain at least 5 or more debuffs. The key feature of the fight is that these parrots will change to killer mode, where it will convert all healing to HP damage. My recommendation is bring a non-healer delay team composition for this fight, or you can choose to heal back the HP after they change back to their original form. For Crevasse Beta Part 5, the fight is the redesigned version of the CPU raid where Shadow LD makes its debut. You will be fighting a CPU node with 21 million HP. Accompanying it is the attack and defense nodes which has 7.5 million HP each. The default LUFENIA orb is the boss received damage with a debuff that increases HP damage. Example of such debuff is the infamous Crevasse Beta debuff. You can also uptick the orb while using a healing ability that heals at least 20% of the character's HP. It is highly recommended to bring a Dispeller and Debuff Cleanser for the fight due to constant frame buff and debuffs that the bosses can inflict. For Crevasse Beta Part 6, the fight is the redesigned version of the Swarmfly Heretics where Ida LD makes her debut. You will be fighting the Swarm Fly, which has 22 million HP. It can summon 2 Swarm Fly that has 2 million HP each. The orb requirements need you to deal magic brave damage or dealing thunder weakness damage. The flies don't have any dangerous HP attacks, but they have very strong healing utility. It is highly recommended to dispel off the healing buffs which the flies put or prevent them to act with turn disable debuffs like paralysis and confusion. For Crevasse Beta Part 7, the fight is a redesigned version of Arania Lost Chapter LUFENIA Plus. You will fight 2 Superior Knight that has 14.5 million HP each. The default LUFENIA orb conditions are you need to have a trigger attack from another character or inflicting break on them. Make sure you give them a turn to activate Phalanx or the fight will become even harder to deal. Do take note that all boss HP attacks ignore HP or brave damage immunity effects. So you can either dodge them or delay them to death. I will talk more on these fights in the later section of the guide. On the screen, you will see all the rules card that are available for selection. Running any stage without any rule set will result you earning 0 points for the fight even if you complete the stage with a perfect. Do remember to check the rule set before you embark for any stage. There are total of 34 rules cards. Each rule card can only be used once and you need to distribute them amongst all the 7 stages. The rule card can vary from the crystal type or weapon type restriction. Generally, the more restrictive the rule is, the higher the points you will earn. Let's start off with the crystal color restrictions. A single crystal restriction card will give 3 points per code. There are 6 of them for each crystal color. A 2 crystal restriction will give 7 points per code. There are 6 of them for each crystal color. A 3 crystal restriction will give 12 points per code. There are only 3 of them for blue, green, and yellow units. Now, let's proceed the weapon restrictions. A single weapon type restriction will give you 3 points each. The restrictions is dagger, sword, greatsword, staff, gun, and unique. A 2 weapon type restriction will give you 7 points each. The restrictions available are dagger, sword, greatsword, and staff. A 3 weapon type restriction will give you 12 points each. The restrictions available are sword, greatsword, and staff. In addition to the crystal type and weapon type restriction, this event also introduced the concept that you can swap the LUFENIA orb condition to your liking. There are a total of 5 of them. Similar to the earlier code cards, these cards are also limited to 1 use per stage. Each LUFENIA card gives a 20-point incremental to the points that you can earn from any LUFENIA stage. If you use it and perfect a LUFENIA stage, it will be 30 points. If you use it and perfect a LUFENIA Plus stage, it will give you 40 points. Choose to deploy them wisely as these will help you to achieve the targeted 300 points for the full event rewards. Please do note that not all rule cards are suitable for a stage. You can end up making the stage more difficult than it should be. Let's go through briefly on the cards. For the first card, you need to do both thunder and water damage. I will call this the Garnet card. Bring Garnet will make the orb a non-issue and you can just focus fully on the boss mechanics. For the second card, you need to inflict break on the count target. This is one of the most easiest to fulfill card and some of the boss fights needs you to constantly inflict break to fulfill them. For the third card, you need to inflict 8 or more debuffs in one turn. There are not a lot of units that can do that on a constant basis. It is best that you use a stage where you can do boss no turns. For the fourth card, you need to deal thunder damage and deal at least 500k HP damage in a turn. Depending on the fight, you can fulfill the damage easily on 3 enemies fight, the Masked Monk, or you can use a hard-hitting unit like Machina, Noel, or Noctis with Thunder Enchant on any other stages. Do take note that launches or follow-up don't count towards the orb target requirements. For the last card, you need to let the target takes brave damage from a debuff or you deal damage to the boss with a HP damage debuff active on the boss. Please don't feel compelled to use all cards to get the maximum points total. I myself managed to get the 300 points quota just using 2 of the cards. On this screen, here is some guidelines on how to set the rules. Before you attempt the stage, you can click on Edit Code button to set your codes. In the Codes submenu, you can click on the Edit button under the Codes section to edit the weapon and crystal restriction codes. In the Special Countdown submenu, you can click on the Edit button to edit the orb condition for the fight. Once you set the codes, you will see the total points that you attain if you clear the LUFENIA stage. Depending on the difficulty of the stage will give you additional points thanks to the stage difficulty modifier bonus. On the right side of the screen, I have shown an example on how to read the scorecard. All the points will totaled up and you will multiply by the multiplier bonus so you get the points achieved. A gentle reminder. Do always remember to double check your codes first before you start to attempt the stage. Otherwise you could end up to clear a LUFENIA stage for 0 points. Please note that exit the stage setup screen to the stage list screen will reset the orb condition back to its default and remove all the codes that you have set. To avoid cracking your head apart, try to set your party first so you can select the codes to match your party. On this screen, I will illustrate an example on how impactful on the score using a LUFENIA countdown card is. Without the LUFENIA orb modifier, I only get 40 points for the clear. I redo the run and add in the LUFENIA orb code, I get 80 points for the clear. Although changing the orb could make the fight more restrictive, it will give you a bigger haul of points upon completing the stage. As the saying goes, high risk brings high rewards. On the right side of the screen, you can see on how I plan to set my orb. For the Masked Monk, I have chosen the inflict 8 or more debuffs in 1 turn rule. Any units that can deal 3 or more debuffs on one target will easily achieve that requirements as you will constantly apply 9 debuffs for all enemies. For the Fallen Parrot stage, as I most likely need to delay the boss no turns with a full delay and no HP regen team comp, I will be constantly rebreaking the boss for more delays. I planning to use no L for the fight. For the CPU stage, I intend to bring Garnet for the CPU fight so I choose Orb Rule card 1. For the Swarm Fly stage, I bring Machina to slap the boss like crazy. So I just bring a Thunder enchant and he will definitely uptick the orb easily. For the Superior Knight stage, after I give them a turn to use Phalanx, slap in your HP damage up debuffs and do no boss turns to end the fight. Now I will begin a short overview for each LUFENIA fight. For Crevasse Part 3, you will fight 3 Masked Monk that has 7.5 million HP each. They are immune to lock. The turn requirements is 70 and the HP requirement is 11,000. The default orb condition is that you need to deal 500,000 HP damage. You can see a timeline of the key HP thresholds that you need to watch out and a table summarizing the effects of the aura conditions. To meet the 500k damage requirements, you can bring hard-hitting AoE specialists like Garnet, Strago, Lon and Ren, Prompto, Squall, Ace, Emperor, Vanille, Sid Highwind, or Sarah. As the boss will constantly counter with debuffs when their mask change to red, you need to bring a debuff evasion unit to make it a non-factor or bring debuff cleansers to remove the debuffs. The boss will upgrade its mask from white to yellow and finally to red. Units that can unbreak and rebreak are very useful to ensure that you can downgrade their mask. Traps and counter setup team also works well to counter the mask change as the boss will get broken by them after they act, thus downgrading their mask. On the right side of the screen, you can see the list of possible units that will help you for the fight. Here is a summary of the key mechanics that you need to watch out for when tackling this fight. As you can see, they will become very dangerous when their mask reaches the red stage. Upon changing to the red mask, they will cast Spain, which will freeze Brave gains, lowers the target Brave damage dealt by 30% and receives 30% more Brave damage from monks. Bring in debuff evasion unit like Aerith, Ignis, or Lena will make it a no issue. Alternatively, you can bring a debuff cleanser to remove the debuffs. When they are in red mask, They also inflict diminishing spirit debuff on every move that they execute. This will allow them to deal more brave damage, thus making them more dangerous. Break them will reset to yellow. Break them again will set them to white. You can see from the effects. The ideal situation is keep them as long as possible in white mask mode. The second key mechanic you need to watch out is the limber wall activation. The wall will trigger at the 69% and 29% HP threshold. Upon triggering it, the boss will put a brave barrier. Make sure you break them. If you don't, they will unleash Vital Feed plus, a brave plus HP attack that will dispel all buffs on the target. Now I will be covering on the fight for Crevasse Beta Part 4. You will be fighting two fallen parrots that has 10 million HP each for the fight. They are immune to launches. The turn requirements is 85 and the HP requirements is 12,000. The default orb condition is uptick at least 5 debuffs on them. On the right side of the screen, I have list down the units that offers multiple debuffs without healing. The boss will activate killer mode once one of their HP thresholds drop to 79%. When it is activated, the bird texture will change from black to white. While they are in white mode, any healing effects will deal HP damage instead. Example: a healing skills that usually heals 20% HP will deal 20% HP damage. HP regen will become very dangerous for this fight. For the boss to switch back to black, a player unit needs to achieve 10 turns. The boss will activate killer mode again at the 29% HP threshold, so window to heal is very limited. To avoid failing the HP requirements and handling the boss annoying attacks, I highly recommend you to set up a delay-oriented team comp that has no healing utility so you can deny them turns while whacking them to death. In this slide, I have added some additional explanations to the killer mode mechanic. As mentioned earlier, when the killer mode is activated, the parrot will changes its texture from black to white. While in killer mode, the boss will also increases its attack and defense by 30%. After you have accumulated 10 turns, the boss will cancel killer mode and gains 3 framed buffs. The buffs grants the parrot a dangerous 200% HP damage up buff, raises its defense by 70% and also gains a HP regen of 3%. If you have happened to reach from 79% to 29% HP in lesser than 10 turns, the boss will stay put at killer mode at the 29% HP threshold. However, once you met the turn requirements, it will deactivate killer mode temporarily and reactivate it back immediately. The parrots have a couple FO heavy HP attacks to watch out for. This is very dangerous, especially if they have the 200% HP damage up buff active. If you have some HP regen utility in the party, you can bring healing calls to heal up when the boss deactivate the killer mode. Do keep in mind that the HP requirements is a strict 12,000 for the fight. To play safe and not worrying too much on the HP requirements, it is highly recommended to bring a non-healing delay-oriented team comp for the fight. I will be now covering the fight for Crevasse Beta Part 5. In this fight, you will fight the CPU, which has 21 million HP. Accompanying it is the attack and defense node that has 7.5 million HP each. The turn requirement is 90 and the HP requirements is 15,000. The default LUFENIA orb conditions is to deal magic brave damage, or you have use a healing ability that heals at least 20% HP. As the orb's conditions are too common, I won't mention the orb helpers for the fight. On the screen, you will see a timeline that you need to watch out along with the auras the boss could gain as you progress through the fight. I will list down groups of units that I feel it will help you for the fight. Dispel and debuffs is a big part for the fight, as the attack node will constantly inflicts 3 framed debuffs while the defense node will heal up the party, battery them and applies framed buffs. It is important not to give the defense node too many turns to act, or you will end up making the fight a longer misery to end. You can choose to use the dodge and counter setup as the event was originally released for Shadow LD. Or you can delay and nuke them with a launch-oriented team comp. Sigma will make this fight relatively easy to handle. On this screen, you will see the key attacks for the boss. As mentioned earlier, the attack node will constantly inflict frame debuffs on your party. You can prevent them with debuff evasion or deploy a debuff cleanser for the fight. The defense node will constantly heal the party and grants them brave, making it the support mate for the group. It is important to minimize turns for the support node. A turn denial debuff will help a lot here. When both nodes are destroyed, the CPU will cleanse all debuffs and framed its turn that it becomes immune to delay and turn deletion. It will emit a gold aura. On its following turn, it will use Object 199, which removes all buffs of your party, set your party current HP to 1 along with 3 turn max HP down debuff, and summons back the nodes with full HP and increase brave damage and gains reductions. This can be potentially a run ender, so it is important not to give the boss any turns after you have destroyed the nodes. Now I will be covering on Crevasse Beta Part 6 LUFENIA Plus. In the stage, you will fight the swarm fly, which has 22 million HP. It can summon 2 small swarm flies that have 2.5 million HP each. The turn requirement is 70 and the HP requirement is 13,000. The default LUFENIA orb conditions is that you need to deal HP damage with a HP damage up debuff on the boss, or the boss received thunder weakness damage. To fulfill the first condition, you can just inflict HP damage up debuff like Maria, D. Cecil, Gavrinth, Karasame, Fran, Ignis, Lily-Set, or Orin. Sync, Arcela, and Agrias works, but they need to be in the party. As the boss will constantly grants HP regen to the party, a dispeller is quite important for the fight. Examples of dispellers are Rains, Bald here, Kaduchiofi, Vanille, Ferris, Beatrix, and Cloud. To ensure you can meet the second orb condition, you can bring a Thunder Enchanter. They are Desh, Kryl, Garnet, or Ash. Here is some key mechanics that you need to watch out for the fight. When the small swarm flies are dead, the swarm fly will enter into angry mode, where it will gain some stats boost. It will use Rallying Cry to summon the small swarm fly again. Other than fully revive them, Rallying Cry will allows the boss party have massive brave gains. It will also grants brave damage and brave gain reduction to the small swarm fly that is on same level as the main boss. You will also need to reapply your debuffs to handle those increased brave gain and damage reduction mechanics. Beware when the small swarm fly uses Buzz. It will heal back 500k HP to the main boss and grants a 1% HP regen buff. You need to either dispel it or block all the boss buff slots with 8 frame debuffs that I have deployed for my initial run. Other than that, the fly is just a punching bag for you. Although the fight don't have a lot of nasty mechanics to watch out for, the main swarm fly has a huge HP pool to shred. So do keep that in mind. Constantly keeping the boss turn disabled after killing small swarm fly is a great strategy for this fight. Killing the main swarm fly will end the fight. Now I briefly go through the mechanics involving the last stage, Crevasse Beta Part 7. You will fight 2 superior knights for the fight. They have 14.5 million each. The turn requirement is 105 and the HP requirements is 15,000. The default LUFENIA orb needs you to either trigger an additional attack from another character or inflict break on the count target. For the first condition, potential orb helpers are Sid Highwind, Cloud of Darkness, Garnet, Vayne, Noctis, Prompto, Core, Yang, and Kane. Although breaking enemies is a standard norm in playing the game, the boss have resistances to break at certain juncture. To break them, you need to either use an instant break ability or deal critical brave damage. Kate Sith, Parrot, Kais, and Lily-Set are all good party critical rate buffers. Units that deal instant breaks or rebreaks are very useful for this fight. I have listed down the possible orb helpers that you can consider for the fight. The boss will do energy charge at the 79% and 49% HP threshold. Do give the boss a turn to use Phalanx, otherwise when the boss do an energy charge at 79%, it will gain additional properties. On top of the standard 30% brave damage resist, the boss will become immune to delay and turn deletion. It will also gains an additional 200% HP damage resistance. You will see the boss turns being framed and emitting a gold aura. The effect will only be dispelled upon breaking them or after the boss uses the laser shield. The type of laser shield use will dependent where the boss is broken or not. We have finally come to the last slide of the guide. The energy charge mechanic will trigger at the following 2 HP thresholds, 79% and 49%. When it triggered, it will gain a massive amount of brave. To break it, you need to do either one of the following. 1. Deal critical brave damage to break it. 2. Use an instant break ability to break it. On its next turn, it will uses Laser Shield Plus. Make sure you have broken it, otherwise it will use Laser Shield Plus Plus. That attack will cleanse all debuffs on itself, deal a single brave plus HP that dispel all buffs on the target. Do note that both variants of the laser shield ignores brave and HP damage nullification effects. So avoid getting broken by it. The boss main mechanic is the building of its Phalanx mode. You need to prevent it triggering Phalanx plus where its shields will emit the red aura. As you can see, the resistance gain are quite nasty, so it is your best interest to not giving it turns to trigger it. If it is Phalanx plus mode, it will unleash shield attack, which is a single target brave plus HP with 10% splash damage. Like the laser shield, the attack will ignore brave and HP damage immunity effects. Dodging it or freezing the brave gains is the preferred strategy to handle the boss HP attacks. Try to kill both bosses at the same time. Otherwise, the surviving one will enrage and boost its stats. I have come to the end of the guide. Hopefully, this will help you. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you are looking forward to future content like this, please subscribe to my channel for future related content. Good luck and bye.